Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Just a heads up, everyone, that my new book, Lessons in Gratitude, a memoir on race, the arts, and mental health, published by the University of Michigan Press, is now available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. I encourage you to check it out. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Brian Prechtl, who serves as the Director of Education and Community Engagement for the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. Brian, welcome to the show.
It is an honor to be with you today, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am so excited to talk to you. Obviously, the Baltimore Symphony is one of our great partners for the show, one of our creative partners, also a wonderful partner for all of Sphinx's work and what it's done over the years. But in addition to your administrative role with the orchestra, you also are a member of the orchestra on stage in the percussion section. And of course, also you've been a composer and done a host of things, so very excited to talk to you. What I thought would be great is to first kind of just talk about, since it's pretty rare to have someone who both sits with the orchestra as a musician, but also has a formal, right, like full-time administrative capacity. How do you balance both of those worlds? Because I think a lot of times people think those are kind of almost different worlds, sometimes oddly enough in opposition, which I've never fully understood, right? And so do you wear those hats differently? Are they combined? Do you feel it helps you in both arenas to kind of be in both arenas, or just love your thoughts on the experience?
That's great. It's a great question. We could talk the whole time about that. But yeah, it is unique. I don't think there's many other people that are doing this, but I actually think that each one of these roles does inform my work in the other, especially all the work I've done on stage over the years, and also leading the union efforts in the orchestra has helped me to understand, the staff sort of interface, and being on the staff has given me a greater perspective on what it is we do and how difficult it is to put that orchestra on the stage every week. So I think it's actually really been an incredible boon to me to be able to have this unique perspective as I stand atop the fence and look at both worlds.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it must be very, very interesting to have those, but I could see it being an incredible value because you literally see and know that staff perspective, and of course you have and understand the musician perspective, and so hopefully ultimately that helps to really create a bridge that's so impactful. So of course you're really focused in education and in the way in which the orchestra really engages with the community. So first and foremost, I thought if you could kind of share what's kind of the breadth of what you do with that at the BSO? Some orchestras, it's different, the breadth of their education programs versus community engagement. And so just kind of curious the breadth of the work that falls under your purview.
The education department is pretty all-encompassing. We believe in lifelong learning, and so we start concerts for young children, from age 0 to age 5, which are music box concerts. Then we have midweek education concerts, which of course are aimed at those elementary to middle school children that, we bust them all into the Meyerhoff and they get to see the orchestra for the first time. I remember when I went to one of those in Hartford and saw the Hartford Symphony as a young child. It changed my life, and we're trying to change lives through that. Of course, every time we bring them into the hall. We also have a very vibrant youth orchestra program. We have now 4 youth orchestras in the Baltimore Symphony Youth Orchestra program, so that's under education as well. And we have something very unique called BSO Academy, which is for adult amateurs, we like to say, although they're not really amateurs. Avocational musicians, I think, is a better word. People that used to play when they were younger. Some of them, went to school at Eastman and places like that, but then they went on to other fields, and later in life, they're rediscovering their joy for music. So So we have a week-long side-by-side experience, which we just finished a couple of weeks ago. And we do things like an experience called Play Date, where people will just come for one night, sit down side by side with the BSO and play through Tchaikovsky 4 or some piece like that. We did that this year. And then, of course, there's a lot of other things. We have side-by-side experiences for the Baltimore School for the Arts and Baltimore County with our youth orchestras, of course, and we send musicians out to schools to help with engagement. So there's a lot of different things. And plus, we have Orchids, which is existing right beside us. I know you probably know a lot about Orchids, and your audience probably does too. It's a unique program that reaches almost 2,000 kids a week. And really tries to change their lives using music for social change.
It's really, I mean, it's awesome. And the breadth of work, including Orchids and all of that, the collaborations that the orchestra does, it really is truly impactful. And I was curious, as you go about leading this work, is there, when you're thinking about it, are there kind of one or two things that are the top priorities? In other words, as you think about this work, is the primary benefit for the young people involved? Is the primary benefit for kind of the orchestra as a whole, or for the musicians on stage? Kind of wondering how you think about the driving architecture of the programming that you oversee.
Well, I think when you think about lifelong learning, I think you think that, of course, everybody has to be served. The students, of course, are job one for us, and you know, introducing them to the joy of music. I mean, that's one of the unique things about being a professional musician my entire life, is that I've had this passion for music that brought me to the stage, and I want to make sure that every child that we touch gets a taste of that. So it's important, no matter what it is, that they come away with that. Now, it is important for the musicians on stage to also feel that, because if they feel it, if they get it, then they're really going to give it, and it's going to be apparent. You know, it'll be caught more than taught, and that's really what I like to see happening. So that's crucial, and I think we're in a different place as orchestras these days, you know, especially these legacy institutions. I think that it's clear that everybody's wanting to know, what do we bring to the communities that we're planted in? You know, how do we make them better? How do we impact them? We don't expect to be existing unto ourselves. We're not ivory tower institutions anymore. And I think in a city like Baltimore is wanting to know what the orchestra is going to do to make that a better place to live. So that's really a driving force for us in the education department.
It's absolutely awesome. And when there's, right, because of course we always have in the arts, people who are like, well, why the arts, and why this work, and or why should young people not be focused on something else? What do you say to people who say, well, why should we have this space for the arts for our young people in Baltimore or in any city? As you think about that, how do you articulate the value of this work that you're doing so well and we all do?
Well, I think we all know that the arts really make us more complete. They make us better people, and we're all born with this creative talent, and I think it's something that actually all of us are born with. I remember once I used to teach at a private school in Indiana, and we used to have these all-school assemblies for students that were 3 and 4 years old, all the way up to high schoolers. And the art teacher got up once. She said, "Okay, all of you kids down on the floor, all you little ones, how many of you are artists?" Nearly all the kids raised their hands. And then she said, "Okay, elementary kids, school kids, how many of you are artists?" And about, half of them raised their hands. Middle schoolers, how many of you are artists? Maybe a third, maybe a quarter. High schoolers, how many of you are artists? Maybe 5 to 10%. She said, "What happened? You're the same kids." She said, "The world tells us that our creative thought, our creative energy isn't worthwhile. That's not true. We are all artists. Don't ever let the world tell you anything other than that." And I really took a lesson away from that and realized that our job is to remind everybody we're all artists. We all have creativity, and we should know that it is valuable. So I think that that's the most important lesson we can teach.
I love that visual that you shared, and obviously it really captures it and captures that impact that our society can sometimes have that diminishes that that sheer joy, and then of course the ability to actually take on the craft and a discipline and develop it to a high level, which is so critically important. One additional thing kind of about that is you think about the kind of breadth of the programs that you're overseeing at the BSO. Are there any kind of key mechanisms that you think would be of value to share for our audience, many of whom are focused on their own educational programs at their institutions? Any mechanisms or kind of best practices that you found have really worked? You're like, we always strive to encompass or incorporate this into the work that we're doing because we know it creates impact. Any things like that that you're able to share?
I mean, the most important and impactful work that we do is reminding all of these folks, especially the young children, that they are still creators. I think we went through a period of time where when we played instruments or when we sang, we were just sort of recreating things. But one of the main goals, especially at Orchids in particular, is to have the children be part of the creative process. And I used to teach a bucket band, which is a way that we really train children. It's an amazing vehicle for developing inner pulse and for young kids to learn how to work as a team. But part of that teaching was a compositional element that we put into everything we did. We would just, whether it was just having them create 4-bar fills or having them actually tell us exactly how the piece should go, and then we would work as a group. So we do that there. We've instituted some of that even in the youth symphony programs. I think reminding each of these musicians that they're not just recreating, they're creating. And I think it's really important to keep that top of mind.
Absolutely. And it's just incredible. And you're, of course, a composer as well, in addition to everything. So it's awesome. So unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests, this work, it can literally see the joy that it brings you and how it fulfills your life. But there must be tough days, and whether it's on the musician side or the administrative side, and just wondering, are there any things that you do that help you when times are the toughest, when you feel like you might not be able to solve a challenge that lies ahead?
Well, I think you know that there's always logistical hurdles when you're working with children or organizing events involving children. And the best skill I've learned over many years of working in this community is to embrace the reversals of fortune that invariably crop up as a team. It doesn't matter if it's the buses didn't show up at the right place at the right time, or your strongest student broke their arm and won't be at the performance, or even that your students, this happened, lost their passport between getting on the plane and getting off in a foreign country. It doesn't matter if you can get everybody involved, and especially your team led by you, to embrace it with calm and positive energy. The team, whether it's a performing group or an education team or the children, they always come away stronger after dealing with a crisis than they were before. So I think it is just looking and expecting that things are not going to go as they are and saying, here it is, and making sure that you welcome it.
Well, Brian Prechtl, as a composer, as a musician, as an administrator, and all other things, it is just incredible. Thank you so much for taking this time. You are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you again so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Aaron. It was a delight to be here.
Just a heads up, everyone, that my new book, Lessons in Gratitude, a memoir on race, the arts, and mental health, published by the University of Michigan Press, is now available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. I encourage you to check it out.